Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Saturday as always, especially after last night's edition of Friday Night SmackDown. There is a ton of news stories to get into today, so let's get straight into today's stories and let's talk about the change to the Universal Championship match at the Royal Rumble, because WWE has named that Kevin Owens will be Roman Reigns' new opponent at the Royal Rumble for the Universal Championship, in addition to a stipulation also being announced for the match. Now, a new Royal Rumble opponent has been named for the WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns. As previously noted, Reigns was going to be facing WWE official Adam Pearce and forcing him into being the new #1 contender for the Universal title at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Now, it was noted on last night's SmackDown that the match would be a no disqualification match, but then, due to the request of the Universal Champion, the stipulation was changed to a last man standing match. Now, the show closing segment saw Adam Pearce and Roman Reigns sign their contract in the middle of the ring. However, Adam Pearce then pulled a swerve on the head of the table and declared that he was dealing with a knee injury. After the contract was signed, Pearce then brought out the new challenger for the Royal Rumble, that being Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens then signed the contract and taunted Roman Reigns as SmackDown went off the air. So now Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns is now official for the Royal Rumble pay-per-view in a last man standing match for the Universal Championship. Now, it's funny. It's very funny, isn't it? Because you just can't win. That's the thing that I think I've probably learned from this, is that you can't win. Or fans, WWE, say what you will about them, criticize them about certain things, praise them for other things, they just can't win. Because it's funny, isn't it? Because last Friday night, of course, we go off the air on SmackDown, and it's announced that Adam Pearce is facing Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble. The backlash, I was critical of parts of it, but the backlash: why are they doing this? It's terrible. I can't believe this. I don't want to see Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. It's stupid, blah, blah, blah. But over the course of the last 7 days or so, people have warmed up to it. People have started to go, actually, you know what? It might be slightly interesting. It's got a bit of buzz. They want to see Adam Pearce get his opportunity. They want to see Adam Pearce compete inside of a WWE ring. People like the story too. People were excited to see Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. So last night on SmackDown, when it's announced that Kevin Owens would be replacing Adam Pearce, which I think I certainly expected, I said it here on the channel several times, that I felt that that wouldn't probably be the match. It would be Kevin Owens or Shinsuke Nakamura replacing Adam Pearce. Once Kevin Owens is announced to replace Adam Pearce in this match, suddenly you see the same people who were complaining about the Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns match going, oh, I can't believe they changed it. I was looking forward to Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. Why are they changing it? We saw this at TLC. It's like, they can't win. They just can't win, can they, with some people? There is a certain pocket of people on social media that is just looking to criticize anything the WWE does. Because 7 days ago, they didn't want to see Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. 7 days later, once they change it, they really wanted to see Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. They can't win. They just can't win. Now, to be honest, as I mentioned before, when it comes to the Adam Pearce-Roman Reigns match, I wasn't against having the match. I was excited to see Adam Pearce get his opportunity. I was excited to see Adam Pearce challenge for the Universal Championship. Obviously, we know that his history when it comes to being an NWA World Heavyweight Champion, an NWA Hall of Famer, competing in Ring of Honor, competing on the independent scene. I think everyone wanted to see Adam Pearce have a match. People were, if anything, fascinated to see Adam Pearce face Roman Reigns. And they were excited to see that story. They were interested in the story playing out. I think the major criticism, which was my only criticism of that match, was why now? It doesn't make a lot of sense to have that match at the Royal Rumble, arguably the second biggest show of the year. That story makes sense for a TLC. That story makes sense for a Backlash, a Payback, and Extreme Rules. Just not the Royal Rumble. It doesn't make a lot of sense for that. And we're always talking about creating new stars and WWE's lack of building homegrown or top-level, especially male superstars. And then you have Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns at the second biggest show of the year. That doesn't make a lot of sense. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But I was excited for the match. I was excited for the program. I just wasn't sure about the timing of it. And I said at the time here at the channel that I thought probably it made the most sense that we were going to actually have Kevin Owens or Shinsuke Nakamura replace Adam Pearce, and that's what we've got. Again, I just find it humorous. I find it very humorous that you have this group of people that are last week were going, oh, I can't believe it, it's terrible, and then 7 days later, once they change it to Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns, they're going, oh, I was looking forward to Roman Reigns, Adam Pearce, oh, WWE lied to me, this, and that, and it's like, they can't win. Nevertheless, obviously, I thought everything that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman did last night on SmackDown was excellent. I thought it was very well done. I thought the narrative thread throughout the show was very good. I really enjoy when they have that. I really enjoy when throughout the show they're telling a story through a variety of segments, a variety of vignettes, and the show's story is ever evolving throughout the show. I think that's really important, and that's what we had. You know, at the start of the show, you had Roman Reigns talking to Paul Heyman. It's a no DQ match. Adam Pearce signs it. He goes back. Roman Reigns goes, no, I want something different. It's a last man standing match. They do the thing in the ring. I thought that was all very well done, and I enjoyed that. So I thought it was very well done. Am I slightly disappointed that we're not seeing Roman Reigns, Adam Pearce? I mean, slightly. I mean, again, I wanted to see the match. My only criticism, my only question was, why have it at the Rumble? So I don't think you can rule this out for the future. Maybe we will still have Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns. It's just a case of when. We know Elimination Chamber is the stop before WrestleMania. Maybe they have it at Elimination Chamber. That makes more sense to have that match there. It's not as big of a show as the Royal Rumble or obviously WrestleMania, so it makes sense to have it maybe at Elimination Chamber. So I don't think it's completely ruled out at this point that we're going to have Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns, not by a long shot. So I think that's not off the table, as it were there. So I enjoyed SmackDown last night. Again, I thought it was very well done. The only criticism, and it's nobody's fault, was obviously in the main event segment during the reveal of Kevin Owens and Adam Pearce doing his explanation. They obviously were having some technical issues at the time, and the microphone was cutting out. And when that happens, again, no one can really do anything about it. Adam Pearce couldn't, Roman Reigns couldn't, Paul Heyman couldn't, nobody could. It's just a bit frustrating, isn't it? You're like, it would have been such a great reveal, but the technical issues the technical gremlins were out in full force there. But as far as SmackDown in general, really enjoyed it, as always. SmackDown's a very enjoyable show to watch. SmackDown, as always, is a very good show to watch. And the Roman Reigns stuff is always very, very good. Very good. So I enjoyed that, and I'm very excited to see Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens again. They had a fantastic match at TLC. Was it 4 years ago at this point? They had a fantastic match at Royal Rumble in 2017, which I believe, was that also a last man standing match? They're redoing that match for 4 years later. Or was it last man standing match? I think it was last man standing, and they had like Jericho and the shark cage above the ring, that kind of deal. So they have excellent chemistry, excellent chemistry. Now, I don't expect Kevin Owens to win, but I think we're probably going to see a continuation of what we saw at TLC. We're going to see Kevin Owens just take a ruthless beating in that match. And maybe that's going to be the case there. It said it reminded me of Mick Foley. It was a Mick Foley kind of beating that Kevin Owens took at TLC. And I expect more of the same at the Royal Rumble. So I'm very excited to see that. Let's move on and talk about Randy Orton, because by all accounts there are plans to have Randy Orton be removed from the Royal Rumble match, by all accounts. There's speculation that Randy Orton's spot in the 30-man Royal Rumble match could be removed. Orton recently announced during a Legends Night backstage segment with WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry that he will be entering the men's Royal Rumble, but he's also been rumoured to face The Fiend in a Firefly Funhouse match at the pay-per-view. So there's been lots of discussion as to what is actually going on with Randy Orton right now. What is going on when it comes to his status for the Royal Rumble and the Royal Rumble match. Now, in an update, the Wrestling Observer newsletter has reported that Orton's Rumble announcement was a red herring when it was made, but everything is open to change. Now, Orton has been announced for Monday's Raw in a segment where he will address the recent fireball attack by Alexa Bliss. It's possible that The Fiend could return in that segment to set up a Firefly Funhouse match at the pay-per-view. The Fiend, of course, has not been seen since Orton defeated him in the Firefly Inferno match at WWE TLC in December. There's no word on if Orton would be willing to pull double duty at the pay-per-view. We'll have to wait and see, but of course an answer is coming soon, essentially. So that's very interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people, once Orton announced that he was going to be in the Royal Rumble match, I think a lot of people thought, okay, that means that The Fiend is coming back at the Royal Rumble, or in the Royal Rumble match. But at the same time, again, we were having all of these reports going, we're going to have a Firefly Funhouse match at the Royal Rumble, it's a red herring, and now it seems to be confirmed by Dave Meltzer. So ultimately, we will have confirmation of this soon, but it's certainly interesting that WWE are planting red herrings, as it were, to try and throw people off where they're going with the storyline. Again, that's not a bad thing. The biggest complaint a lot of the time with WWE when it comes to their storytelling is that it's too predictable, right? Too predictable. We know where you're going with this. We know what you're trying to do. We know what the end game is. So the fact that they are willing to do these red herrings to try and put people off, to try and confuse people, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't have a problem with it. And as far as Randy Orton's status for the Rumble, who knows? Who knows at this point? We could see double duty. We could see The Fiend return in the Royal Rumble match, or we could see, as Dave Meltzer is reporting in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, we could see a scenario where Orton's entry to the Royal Rumble match is revoked. He says, you know what, I'm not going to compete in that match, and then we have the match against The Fiend inside the Firefly Funhouse. So we'll probably find out that on Monday, I would think. Now let's talk about Ricochet, because obviously Ricochet's been a big story the past week, because Ricochet, it's been a lot of discussion about his future with the WWE. Is he out of contract at the end of the month? Is he leaving WWE? There were reports that he was expected to leave, then Ricochet then responded to those reports and said that they were fake. But now we have some more details when it comes to Ricochet's contract status with WWE, because Ricochet is reportedly locked into a WWE contract for a few more years at least. The rumours on Ricochet possibly leaving WWE soon resurfaced this week after originally making the rounds back in September. It was reported via Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live that the belief was Ricochet had not signed a new WWE contract. The story was that he originally signed a 3-year contract back in 2018 and that deal was coming up. But in an update, the Wrestling Observer newsletter has reported that Ricochet's contract does not expire until the summer of 2024. Ricochet reportedly signed a 5-year deal when he moved to the main roster in 2019 at a time where WWE was trying to prevent talents from signing with AEW in the pre-pandemic era of WWE contracts. Now, of course, Ricochet debuted on Raw in February of 2019 and ended up winning the United States title from Samoa Joe in June. But he lost the title just 21 days later to AJ Styles. It looks like he would have signed the new 5-year contract with WWE around that period of time. Now, Ricochet defeated Drew Gulak on last Thursday's WWE main event episode, but has not appeared on Raw since losing to Mustafa Ali on December 28. It was reported that he was backstage for this week's edition of Raw, but obviously was not used on the broadcast. So that hopefully will put an end to all of these Ricochet rumours at the moment. I do find it slightly humorous that Brian Alvarez was really the first one to stoke the flames of this story, saying he hasn't signed a new deal, and then someone who is related in the same umbrella as Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer says, no, actually it's a 5-year contract, and all of that comes out of nowhere. There seems to be no accountability when it comes to that group of just saying things that they think are facts when they have no idea are facts. And then it causes all of this uproar for 7 days of people talking, is he leaving? Is he not leaving? Is he leaving? Is he not leaving? In reality, he was never leaving. His contract was never going to expire, and it's a report that came from him because he was guessing. That's not really good enough when it comes to the reporting, is it? That's just pure speculation. And maybe shame on us for taking it too seriously. I don't know. But Ricochet isn't going anywhere anytime soon. He signed a 5-year deal, not a 3-year deal, but a 5-year deal when he came to the main roster in 2019. So after he signed with WWE in 2018, immediately, bang, he signs a 5-year deal once it goes up to the main roster. So he's under contract for a long, long time until 2024. So no more Ricochet leaving WWE rumors for a while. But what I do want to talk about when it comes to Ricochet is Ricochet was not only in the news for his contract over the course of the last 7 days, but last night Ricochet and his partner Kacy Catanzaro were in the news for not the right reasons, because they were criticised for having a surprise birthday party for Kacy Catanzaro amid the current ongoing pandemic. Now, many fans are frustrated with Ricochet and Kacy Catanzaro for hosting a get-together, a surprise birthday party during the pandemic. Now, last night, and over the course of, I think, the last couple of days, Kacy Catanzaro recently posted a series of videos to her Instagram showing herself and Ricochet celebrating her birthday with multiple other wrestlers. These included Damian Priest, Caden Carter, Stacey Irvin Jr., and Daniel Vidot, among other friends of Catanzaro and Ricochet. Now, this led to, very rightfully so, many fans being incredibly frustrated and commenting on her post, as well as sending out multiple tweets expressing their displeasure at what looked to be a clear disregard to social distancing protocols amongst this current pandemic. This, of course, comes in the same week that WWE Champion Drew McIntyre tested positive for COVID-19. This is also at the same time that there are multiple reports of major outbreaks affecting WWE, AEW, and Impact Wrestling when it comes to COVID-19. Now, this isn't the first time that Catanzaro and Ricochet have been called out for holding a gathering gathering during the pandemic, with them hosting a New Year's Eve party at the start of the year. This party included talent from multiple promotions with Rich Swann, Su Yung, Stacey Irvin Jr., Marty Scurll, Serena Deeb, along with both Catanzaro and Ricochet pictured in one of Ricochet's Instagram posts. Now, since this whole thing blew up on social media, Kacy Catanzaro has responded to a fan on social media. On Instagram, a fan said, quote, "So, are you trying to get COVID for your birthday? Fan of you both, but this is absolutely irresponsible." Catanzaro responded saying, quote, "I got COVID tested every single week, at least once a week. The same goes for almost everyone at the table because we work together. We followed all of the guidelines, wore our masks until we got to our area, and did everything we were supposed to do. So I don't appreciate the attack from everyone," end quote. I mentioned this on social media when I saw this. WWE, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for them because ultimately WWE, they can put in all of these protocols, they can put in all of these strict things in place to try and overcome these issues of putting on these shows during the pandemic. They can put on the social distancing policies, they can put on the mask wearing mandates, they can put on the hand sanitizing stations, they can put on the COVID testing before every show. They can do all of that, but ultimately their hands are slightly tied here, because if they put in all of those protocols, all of these rules in place, that's fine. But if the talent doesn't follow these protocols, or the talent doesn't follow or adhere to social distancing or mask wearing outside of the ring in their personal lives, then WWE is losing. They're fighting a losing battle when it comes to this whole pandemic. And I do sympathize with them slightly there, because they must see tests and they must see instances like this with Ricochet and Kacy Catanzaro on social media last night and over the course of the last few days, and they must just throw their hands in the air and go, seriously? And I think that's what everyone was saying online. And they can respond and say, well, we did everything properly and all this and all that. And Kacy Catanzaro can complain about people attacking her. I don't appreciate people attacking me on my birthday, but you have to be held accountable. This is a pandemic. This is a time where the virus is widespread. This is a time of people are dying. You know, and I understand it's your birthday, and I understand you want to celebrate your birthday, but so does everyone. So people want to celebrate their birthday. People want to celebrate the people that have passed away over the course of the last 12 months because of this. And you have this big group and gathering of people, and you say, well, I get tested once a week. That's once a week. Seriously, that's once a week. So what, because you got tested on a Monday, you definitely won't get it in the course of the next 7 days? And it's not just about you. It's not just about you testing positive. It's about the people around you. It's about when you go to shop for your groceries and you walk past someone. If you've tested positive, you can spread it to them. That's how a pandemic works. That's how this works. And I know they want to celebrate their birthday, and I know they want to be with their friends and their family and their loved ones, but so does everyone else. Everyone else is having to make sacrifices at the moment. And, you know, you can complain, oh, I don't appreciate being attacked. Well, people are trying to not attack you, they're trying to hold you accountable. There's a big difference between being attacked and being held accountable. You're a public figure. You're in the public eye. And, you know, if you posted these things to your social media, you were the one that posted them on social media. You were the ones that said, look at my birthday. Look at what we were doing for my birthday. And then once people say, what are you doing? It's a pandemic. And they roll their eyes and they say, look, that isn't good enough. You're a public figure. You're meant to be sending a message to your base of thousands of people online that you have to do this, you have to do that. And then we'll probably hear the apology later on. I'm sorry, we know different. It's too late. You've already done it. You've already done it. So it's beyond frustrating. It's beyond frustrating, and frankly, it's beyond irresponsible. They can talk about, oh, we adhered to all the guidelines. I get tested once a week. Okay. You don't get tested every day, though. When was the last time you got tested? Because if you got tested a couple of days ago, who knows if you've got it right now? Who knows? You can have situations where you test negative, and then positive on the same day. So it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's just pure damage control. And every time they do something like that, going, oh, we followed everything. We followed everything. Pure damage control. But they had to have the birthday. They had to have the big surprise birthday party, right? How dare we criticize them for celebrating the birthday? It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. On a lighter note, though, we have some nice news, because last night Shinsuke Nakamura got his old entrance music back. Yes, praise the Lord, some good news already in 2021. Shinsuke Nakamura is thrilled after WWE has brought back his old entrance theme. Now, on last night's episode of Friday Night SmackDown, Shinsuke Nakamura completed his recent babyface turn by bringing back his old entrance theme ahead of his match against Jey Uso. After defeating Uso, the King of Strong Style took to Twitter and confirmed that he will be using the Rising Sun by CFOs going forward, he said, "Yayo, the rising sun is back. Hashtag King of Strong Style," wrote Nakamura, along with a link to the song. Nakamura now is back to being a babyface for the first time since his WWE Championship match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania 34. Upon turning heel, though, 3 years ago, he used a remix version of The Rising Sun, which included some Japanese vocals. Now, after the SmackDown went on the air, Nakamura also said in a backstage interview that he had plans to go after Roman Reigns' Universal Championship. Now, this is very exciting. I think everyone, to be fair, I didn't mind the remix version of the song, but it's nothing like the original. I'm frankly surprised they brought it back. The reason I'm surprised they brought it back is because obviously it's written and performed by CFOs, and we know that WWE actively, over the course of the last sort of 12 months or so, has been actively trying to remove any music by the CFOs on WWE television, because the rumours were that the deal that was signed in terms of royalties to CFOs, because CFOs no longer work with WWE, there were the reports that the royalties was a really bad deal for WWE. They weren't happy about the amount of money they had to pay every time the music was performed on TV. So that seems really odd that in a year that they removed, Aleister Black, Seth Rollins, Keith Lee, etc., other great entrance themes, that they brought back a CFO's one. It just seems very bizarre. I'm not complaining though. Very, very happy to see that The Rising Sun is back. Love that entrance theme. It's an awesome theme, and just glad to see that Nakamura is being used properly again. Nakamura is a main event level talent. We were talking about it last week when he had that great performance in the Gauntlet match. How awesome is it to see Shinsuke Nakamura be back in main events, or be back featured on a show? This guy is a star. He is a main event level athlete. He is just that good. So it's awesome to see Nakamura be back in that featured spot, because he should be. He should be. He's too good to be. No offense to Cesaro, because Cesaro is another massively underappreciated and underutilized talent, but he's just too good to not be in that main event spot. He's just too good not to. Now, we have some details when it comes to WWE and the latest COVID-19 outbreak. We have some COVID-19 notes on Drew McIntyre and other WWE superstars in WWE testing positive. Now, WWE Champion Drew McIntyre reportedly has absolutely no idea how he got COVID-19. As previously noted here on the channel, WWE announced on Monday that McIntyre had entered quarantine after tested positive for the coronavirus. He appeared for a pre-recorded video segments on Raw, but was not there live. McIntyre told fans to take the virus seriously, but noted that he had no symptoms and would be back soon. Now, in an update, the Wrestling Observer newsletter has reported that McIntyre was experiencing minimal symptoms before testing positive, but he has no idea how he got the virus because he very rarely leaves the house these days unless it's for work. McIntyre just tested negative a few days earlier following the previous week's Raw taping. That led to the belief that McIntyre was not infected on the January 4 episode for the Legends Night edition of Raw, where he wrestled Keith Lee in the main event and had interactions with WWE Hall of Famers Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart, among others. McIntyre was one of a minimum of 4 wrestlers within WWE that are either suffering from COVID-19 right now or have just gotten over it. One SmackDown superstar who had a TV role, but not a major one, had to be pulled from the January 8 episode after testing positive on January 7. Another significant talent was out of action for a while, but has since returned. A 4th talent was a WWE NXT superstar who has missed a few weeks of TV. Now, the Observer also reported how WWE had a rule that the brands were to be kept separate, especially NXT, from Raw and SmackDown, while exceptions were made in certain cases, such as Akira Tozawa working Raw and SmackDown one week, or the Lucha House Party working Raw and NXT as of late. The company has softened on the rule for whatever reason. This rule is part of what led to Raw Underground being nixed a few months back, but that was not the only reason too. Now, McIntyre is expected to be back in action for his WWE Championship defense against WWE Hall of Famer Goldberg at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view on January 31. So, interesting that McIntyre doesn't know where he got it from, but that is the case for a lot of people, unfortunately. Chris Jericho, he was another one that obviously he announced in September that he had tested positive just this past week, and by all accounts he thinks he got it from a family friend, but no one really knows. No one really knows. You can have your suspicions of where you did get these, where you did get the positive test from, or where you did contract it. Ultimately, as I mentioned before, when you know that you're living in a pandemic, and when you know that you are part of putting on live television shows or any production during a pandemic, there is a very high chance you're going to test positive at some point, because you expose yourself to that risk. So you can try and minimize it. But the issue is that you can't always trust the people around you, especially in the case of Ricochet when they're going out and doing crazy stuff too. So that's the issue. That's the issue there. But interesting when it comes to that. We have some announcements for some SmackDown matches that have been already announced for next week's SmackDown. WWE has announced a match and a segment for next Friday night SmackDown on Fox. Next week's show will feature Big E defending the Intercontinental Championship once more against Apollo Crews. Last week's SmackDown saw Big E retain his title over Crews. The rematch was announced after Crews defeated Sami Zayn during last night's edition of SmackDown. The post-match angle saw Big E and Crews trade some somewhat friendly and fighting words at ringside, but also announced for next Friday's SmackDown, Bayley will be going up against Bianca Belair in the Ultimate Athlete Obstacle Course. Last night's SmackDown featured the premiere of Bayley's new Ding Dong Hello talk show, with Belair being the first guest. The interview turned into an argument, ending with Bayley challenging Belair to an obstacle course challenge on next week's show. Belair accepted the challenge, so we have some things announced for next week's SmackDown. We also possibly have another segment, or match rather, announced for next week's SmackDown, so we'll touch on that in a second. As far as the Intercontinental Championship stuff, it looks to me that Apollo Crews is obviously turning heel. He had the segment with Paul Heyman on Talking Smack a couple of weeks ago. They played that on SmackDown last night. You even had Apollo Crews backstage with Roman Reigns during SmackDown. So I would suspect that Apollo Crews could be turning heel very soon, maybe even aligning himself with Reigns and Heyman. As far as the Bayley talk show, I thought it was well done, and I think it's good because I've been mentioning recently that I felt that Bayley started to get slightly lost in the shuffle after her record-breaking SmackDown Women's Championship reign, and that was a concern to me because she's just too good to be not doing anything. So I like that this is an attempt or a way just to keep her in the spotlight every week on SmackDown. Keep her involved. I think the concern is a bit like with Kevin Owens in the past. They kind of get even more lost because of the... They get more lost because of the talk show element, because they just become a tool to further someone else's story, and sometimes that's a bit of an issue. But that we can address that as they go forward. So just happy to see Bayley being featured once again on TV. We have some update when it comes to WWE planning a new date for WrestleMania 37. WWE is reportedly planning to move the WrestleMania 37 date up 2 weeks from March 27 to April 11. Now this was reported by Fightful Select, which of course is Fightful's Patreon service. Be just sure to check that out. But it was noted by Fightful Select that everything is still subject to change due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, but internally the current plan is for WrestleMania 37 to take place on April 11th. Now a date change was rumoured several months ago to either April 11 or April 18, but it now looks like they have decided on April 11. Now, in terms of WrestleMania 37, the date isn't the only thing that's currently in question, but the location is also up in the air. It was revealed a few months back that WWE was possibly planning on moving the event from the previously announced location of SoFi Stadium in the Los Angeles, California area to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, which was the originally planned location for WrestleMania 36 until the pandemic forced that event to be held at a closed set inside the WWE Performance Center. In an update on the WrestleMania 37 location, the show will not be held in California, but it was noted that if the date of April 11 holds up, then WrestleMania won't be taking place at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida, or the Amway Center in Orlando, as the Major League Baseball's Tampa Bay Rays and the NBA's Orlando Magic will be using those venues for their fixtures. So Raymond James Stadium is not a lock for WrestleMania 37 as of now, but the venue currently does not have any events planned for WrestleMania 37 weekend. WWE will likely be making some announcements very soon when it comes to WrestleMania 37. I would probably assume as soon as the Royal Rumble later this month. So all of the internal calendars say Sunday, April 11. As far as the location, we don't know. As soon as they make the announcement, we'll obviously be sure to talk about it here on the channel. Let's talk about as well, switching from WWE to New Japan, let's talk about Jay White, because Jay White's profile has been removed from the New Japan Pro Wrestling website as this angle continues, but New Japan are still advertising White for upcoming events. Now obviously there continues to be a lot of speculation as to New Japan star Jay White, his future with New Japan. Now White's profile is currently missing from the New Japan website. The profile was first removed earlier this week but added back a few hours later with a new paragraph about his promo at Wrestle Kingdom 15, where he said that he was leaving the company. The paragraph reads, "An emotional switchblade declared backstage that all his effort had been for nothing and that he would be leaving New Japan after January 6, 2021. Should he follow through on this declaration, the pro wrestling world may lose a man who would otherwise join the all-time greats." Now, his profile was added back a few hours later at the time of recording, but now it's been removed and it's not been added back. So there's a lot of confusion as to what's going on. What we do know is that White is currently being advertised for the New Japan event in Buchanan Hall in March, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. The Super J Cup reports that White is also being advertised for the New Japan Cup in mid-March, and he's also being advertised for the New Japan Korakuen Hall event in March, according to Kuwaito. So it was recently reported that WWE was making a major play for Jay White. We've covered this at length here on the channel, haven't we? That WWE have been interested for a long time. They want him, but then it was also revealed that way back when in 2018, when AEW was interested in Jay White, it was told to him that he'd had 7 years left on a contract with New Japan. That was 2 years ago. So he's looking like he's got 5 years left on his deal. Tony Schiavone was also asked about this during a post-show this week for Dynamite. He also said he's pretty much locked into what he's doing in Japan. So I think most people know the status right now of Jay White. I think now we can see, with his profile being removed from the website, this other stuff happening, it's very, very obvious that this is all an angle. And like I said previously, I don't expect Jay White to leave New Japan. So this is just going to be an angle that plays out going forward. I spoke about SmackDown earlier, what had been announced for next week, and possibly we could have Sasha Banks wrestling Carmella and Reginald next week. It looks like Carmella will get her SmackDown Women's Championship rematch from Sasha Banks soon, but it will possibly have a twist because last night's edition of SmackDown on Fox featured a segment where Banks tried to attack Carmella backstage, but Carmella's sommelier, Reginald, got in the way to make the save. Banks then agreed to give Carmella a championship shot, but only if she can have a match with Reginald first. Now, WWE hasn't officially announced this yet, but as of right now of recording, but Carmella indicated that she would agree to those terms. There's no word yet on when the matches will take place. It could happen next week, but it also could take place at the Royal Rumble event on January 31st at Tropicana Field. Now, of course, Carmella defeated Banks by DQ with the title on the line back on the December 11 edition of SmackDown. Banks then retained over Carmella by submission at the TLC pay-per-view, but the feud has continued since then. So possibly we could see this next week. We could possibly see it in a couple of weeks, or we could see it at the Royal Rumble. I would suggest we're probably going to see it at the Royal Rumble, and I would probably suggest that Sasha Banks is going to win. But I'm not against it. I thought they had a fantastic match at TLC. I'm very happy with their match at TLC, so I'm excited to see that continue. Speaking of the women's division in WWE, Alexa Bliss's return to the ring has been announced for Monday Night Raw this week. Because WWE has announced that Randy Orton, of course, will return to Raw on Monday to address the recent fireball attack by Alexa Bliss. It's going to be interesting to see how Orton sounds this fireball attack and if he's going to be bandaged up. As noted, WWE had previously issued a storyline update on Randy Orton this past week, mentioning that he suffered minor burns to his face. In more news, though, for Monday's Raw, it has been announced by WWE that Alexa Bliss will be in non-title action against Asuka. Yes, remember Asuka? She is a person. She does exist on Monday Night Raw. She is the Raw Women's Champion. It's been announced that she'll be facing Alexa Bliss on Monday. This, of course, will be Alexa Bliss's first match since defeating Nikki Cross on the November 23rd episode of Raw. Now, Monday's Raw may possibly be the time where WWE brings back The Fiend Bray Wyatt. He has not been seen, of course, since losing the Firefly Inferno match to Randy Orton at TLC in November. Obviously, as we spoke about earlier, it's believed that it could be facing off in a Firefly Funhouse match at the Royal Rumble, or that he could return during the Rumble match. There's a lot of confusion. What we do know is Alexa Bliss is returning to the ring Monday night to face Asuka. I'm just glad to see Asuka wrestle on Raw, to be honest. I think that's just the big thing. I'm just glad to see Asuka actually have a match. Remind people that she's still the Raw Women's Champion, because it feels like people have forgot. Certainly WWE have, which is very frustrating. So I'm just glad to see Asuka being back and advertised for a match on Raw. Going back to SmackDown last night, Jey Uso has declared his spot for the Royal Rumble. He declared his spot along with Cesaro later on in the show. Now, Jey Uso kicked off the show before his match against Shinsuke Nakamura last night on SmackDown and announced that he will be in the upcoming men's Royal Rumble match. It'll be interesting to note because Jey Uso said that he and WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns aren't satisfied with just running SmackDown, so he plans on winning the Royal Rumble and going on on to WrestleMania 37 to challenge either WWE Champion Drew McIntyre or WWE Hall of Famer Goldberg for the WWE Championship. Of course, Goldberg is set to challenge McIntyre for the WWE title at the Royal Rumble. Could you imagine if Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble match and then faced Goldberg at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship? What a madness that would be. That would be absolute craziness. I don't expect that to happen. I don't expect Jey Uso to win the Royal Rumble either, but hey, you know, stranger things have happened, right? Stranger things have happened, so who knows? I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible, but I don't suspect Jey Uso will win the Royal Rumble match, but hey, you never know. Imagine Jey Uso, after the year he's had, suddenly he faces Goldberg for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. How crazy would that be? Let's talk about this. An interesting story here that WWE is reportedly in contract with the World's Strongest Brothers. Now, Tom Stoltman, the runner-up of the 2020 World's Strongest Man competition, recently revealed that WWE had been in contact with him and his brother, 5-time Scotland's strongest man Luke Stoltman, about potentially crossing over into sports entertainment. Now, while appearing on this week's Football Daft podcast, Stoltman revealed that WWE had previously invited the brothers for a tryout while on tour in Germany. However, the strongman couldn't attend as they were busy with a competition. This is what they had to say. He said, quote, "Me and my brother got asked to do tryouts when they came to Germany for one of the European ones, but I don't know why we didn't take them. I think we were doing some massive competition or something. We messaged them a few times back and forward." Stoltman revealed that Triple H has been the point of contact from the WWE for the two Scottish powerhouses. Ahead of his WWE Championship victory over Randy Orton back in November, Drew McIntyre congratulated Stoltman for his performance in the World's Strongest Man event. The Stoltman brothers are regarded as the strongest siblings in the world. They claim to be the strongest brothers to have ever lived on their YouTube and social media accounts. This isn't anything new when it comes to WWE. They're always looking in a variety of different avenues for talent, whether it's the NFL, whether it's any form of sports, frankly, strongmen, powerlifting. I mean, strongmen competitions where Braun Strowman came from. And you know that WWE sees a gimmick like the World's Strongest Brothers and they just lick their lips and rub their hands because they know, oh my word, the amount of money we could make from that gimmick of having the World's Strongest Brothers. I mean, they made a lifetime of money for Mark Henry being legitimately the strongest man in the world. You know for a fact they could do the World's Strongest Brothers and possibly have Mark Henry as their manager. I mean, write it up. I mean, maybe 5 years' time that could happen. You can go back and clip this video because you just know for a fact that's what they would do. That's exactly what they would do. So keep an eye out for that one in the future. Let's talk about the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic because we have some more teams advancing in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic last night on 205 Live. Last night's edition of 205 Live saw two tag teams advance from the first round of the 2021 NXT Men's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Legado del Fantasma, Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde defeated the Bollywood Boys to advance in the quarterfinals. Legado del Fantasma will now go on to face the winners of the Lucha House Party versus Imperium. Last night's edition of 205 Live also saw Drake Maverick and Killian Dane defeat Kurt Stallion and August Gray. Dane and Maverick will now face MSK, Wesley and Nash Carter, the former Rascals, in the quarterfinals of the tournament. As noted, this past week's episode of NXT saw the Undisputed Era defeat Breezango to advance, while MSK defeated Jake Atlas and Isaiah Swerve Scott, and the Grizzled Young Veterans defeated Everrise as well. The Men's Dusty Classic will continue on Wednesday's NXT show with Leon Ruff and Kushida facing The Way, which is Austin Theory and Johnny Gargano, and Imperium versus Lucha House Party. So the Dusty Rhodes Classic continues. Do I think that Dane and Maverick will win it all? I don't think so, but hey, look, 205 Live, it's funny to see Killian Dane compete on a cruiserweight show. I think that's quite humorous, but I love the Dusty Rhodes Classic, as I mentioned. I've been very critical of tag team wrestling in WWE, and I see this and the Women's Dusty Classic as a chance for WWE to once again breathe some life into their tag team division and set up some tag teams for the future. So I don't have a problem with it whatsoever in the slightest. We have some update as well when it comes to, we talked about WrestleMania's date possibly moving earlier. It looks like we're going to see the same for Elimination Chamber. WWE is reportedly changing the planned date for the 2021 Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. The Elimination Chamber pay-per-view was originally scheduled for February 28, but now PW Insider is reporting that the event will now be held on February 21 instead. The Elimination Chamber 2021 will likely be the final pay-per-view before WrestleMania, and it is expected to be held from the Thunderdome at Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. Now, we don't know why this has been moved. It could be a case of, we mentioned before about Tropicana Field, the Tampa Bay Rays may need the arena back by that period of time. I don't know. It could just be a case they want more breathing time between that and WrestleMania. If WrestleMania is going to be stretched out, maybe they want the build to WrestleMania be longer. I don't know. In the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter, considering there are going to be no fans in attendance. But as I mentioned earlier, that might actually be the event we could see maybe an Adam Pearce versus Roman Reigns match. So that's the situation when it comes to the Elimination Chamber. And finally, what I wanted to talk about was Instagram and how much money reportedly Lana and Mandy Rose were making per Instagram sponsored posts back in 2020, because WWE superstars Mandy Rose and Lana have made a list of the top 100 highest earning celebrities on Instagram in 2020. Matt Seabridge of Love UX recently used Instagram data to compile a list of the top earning celebrities for Instagram on 2020. Now, Lana ranked 83rd while Rose ranked 100. Lana ranked 83rd for earning an estimated $625,000 off 59 sponsored posts. This comes out to an average of around $10,000 per post. Rose ranked 100 for earning an estimated $490,000 off 71 sponsored posts. This comes out to an average of nearly $7,000 per post. Now, the list counts a sponsored post as anything displayed as paid partnership, a post with the hashtag ad hashtag, or anything that's part of an acknowledged brand partnership. Sponsored posts for a celebrity's own brand or family's brand, posts promoting charity work, and posts listed with the gifted hashtag, but not as an ad, were counted. Earnings per sponsored post were calculated using Influencer Marketing Hub's Instagram earnings calculator. It was also noted that all figures are estimates rather than factual earnings data. It should be noted that Lana and Rose can no longer do sponsored posts since the WWE issued their third-party edict back in September, banning talent from working with third parties. Lana and Rose's sponsored posts have since been deleted. Now, that is a lot of money. That is a ton of money. Can you imagine that? Lana earned over $600,000 for her sponsored post on Instagram. Mandy Rose earned nearly $500,000. You can see why WWE wanted to get that money out of their pocket and out of the talent's pocket and into the WWE's pocket. That is insane. That is an insane amount of money. And the fact that WWE prevented their talents from earning that, frankly, is a disgrace during a pandemic. They took, if these reports are accurate, they took $600,000 out of the pocket of Lana because it's their money during a pandemic. They took $500,000, $500,000 out of the pockets of one of their talents because they shouldn't be making their money out of an independent contractor's pocket. That is, I mean, insane. That is absolutely insane. And just those numbers, I mean, what more needs to be said about a third-party edict? It's just ridiculous. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts about all of these news stories in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching this thing streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.